Hey everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. Oh my gosh, who else feels like yesterday you were like, "Wait, it's 4. I've got to go show up live." I feel like yesterday was so strange and surreal because I was like, what am I doing with my life? I actually had a really long to-do list for yesterday, and I was like, okay, it's my first, Sundays I'm supposed to take the day off, but yesterday was like a day where it's like, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff done, and I'm going to, really get back into work mode, and here we go. And I did almost nothing yesterday. I ended up taking most of the day off. Surprise, surprise. I went to Target. I actually went out of the house because I just really needed to get out. I went to Target and found toilet paper. So thank you. Several of you actually emailed me and offered to send us toilet paper, which was so sweet and thoughtful. So I sincerely appreciate that. I will definitely hit you up if it turns out that we need more toilet paper. But I walked into Target and I saw the big aisle of TP was completely empty, just like everything around here has been for an entire month. And then I turned the corner and there were 2 little packs of toilet paper. So we are very excited in our house because we have toilet paper. I saw a few of you mentioning my shirt. I decided to go kind of all Hello Kitty today. So I've got this Hello Kitty shirt. I've got Hello Kitty Swarovski pendant. And I also have this little Hello Kitty bracelet that has my name on it. I hear kids upstairs. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I don't know if I can get this door shut a little bit. That's as good as it gets. But I'm excited that you guys are actually here again because I figure we might have a smaller crowd here today since the story is over. And I was just telling George this morning, it was like, all of this is kind of new territory. Are we going to continue to have people show up, or is it like, okay, it's over and they'll wait until season 2 starts? And I don't know, we're going to just play it by ear and see. But what we're going to do today is I do have, so overall, I have 2 more Beautiful Demons paperbacks to give away. These are from just an order that I placed a while back. And so I've got 2 more extra copies to give away. I'm going to give away 1 today and 1 on Friday. And I'm also going to talk to you guys a little bit today about my process for writing. So we're going to, I see there's a conversation going on about ASMR, which is kind of funny. But I've kind of got my chair stacked up over here with some extra stationery items to kind of show you my process. We're going to talk a little bit about story structure, but not too much for those of you who are not writers, but we're going to kind of talk about it. So Deb, ASMR, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just like an aesthetic of like sounds or whatever that give you kind of like a tingly feeling. I don't even know if somebody can explain that better, but it's kind of like a reaction that's a very relaxing sort of body reaction. I don't know who can explain that better than me, but George has enjoyed ASMR for a really long time. And it's something you can find a ton of here on YouTube. It's like personal attention. It's a lot of people whispering into microphones and stuff like that, and like rustling papers and different things like that. George really likes it and he has chronic headaches. So he always is looking for different types of ASMR. I have always been like, none of that works for me at all. ASMR, nothing. I get no response at all from ASMR. But for some strange reason, going through different ASMR trigger videos, it turns out that soap cutting is my thing. So for some reason, like if you go and you search for soap ASMR, there are people that will cut soap using like a razor blade type thing or a box cutter into little cubes, and they'll make their own soap that kind of crunches and stuff like that. Okay, so autonomous sensory meridian response. Thank you, Sylvia. I knew somebody would know what that is, but it's like a response, like a tingliness or something like that. So I have, we were lied to about coffee shops. I really have no idea why I respond to soap cutting. It doesn't really make any sense. Ooh, moon sand cutting. No. George, make a note of that. And George was actually looking into like the possibility of us making our own soaps because I really like the ones that are like really crunchy. There's just something very satisfying about that. And then when all the pieces of soap are down on the table and they like take them in their hand and crunch them up, for some reason, that is very relaxing to me. So when I have a headache or I'm feeling stressed, I will turn on soap cutting ASMR and just put in my headphones and just listen to the sound of that soap. I have no idea why it works, but it is just one of those things that is, yeah, in search of the tingle. It's like, I don't know, it's a very de-stressing kind of thing for me for some crazy reason. But I tend to talk a lot. So I do talk, a lot. I've got another YouTube channel here on YouTube that is called Heart Breathings, and it's for writers. And so in the process of doing that, I've had people tell me that they want me to make ASMR. So I'm kind of like, I don't even know what kind of ASMR, but then it turns out, I guess there are people that make ASMR where they're like, like writing, just like writing with pencils on paper and stuff. And I'm like, I could make stationery ASMR. Let's do it. I love it. I don't know why. Writing ASMR. Who knew Teutonics? Well, who knew it could be a thing? So anyway, I don't know how we got started on ASMR. I blame George, but we are going to talk a little bit about story structure, how I come up with my ideas. Feel free to ask questions. Today, we don't really have, obviously, an episode to read or anything like that. If you missed the news, The Witch's Key is completed now in rough draft form. I am going to be editing it, getting it to my beta readers and to my editor. So I'll be self-editing it first. So I'll talk about that a little bit in my story structure talk coming up here. And then we will do, I just got totally distracted by Sandy's comment. I'm sorry. I had to laugh at that. Then I'll introduce you to some of my favorite journals and how I use those. So hopefully that'll be interesting, but feel free to also pop any questions that you have into the chat so that we can kind of talk through it. So I also have some things that I'm going to talk about in terms of what I'm going to be doing coming up here to kind of just life change kind of thing. So we'll talk about that. Also, some manifesting stuff that we're going to have. It's not exactly like a tingly, like, I don't know, Carol, how to describe it. It's mostly just like relaxing. I don't know. Caroline said, my fave ASMR is Sarah opening the crinkly plastic wrapping on Erin Condren her Happy Planner. I know. I saw Jennifer posted something about Hello Kitty, and that just made me laugh right before I came on. Another thing, if you guys are interested, I wanted to ask if you guys would be interested in my next vlog coming up this weekend, being a series of videos about my office here. So you guys don't see the desk that I've got my computer on that I'm doing this webcast from, but I've just recently gotten a standing desk this year. So showing you guys my desk, but also kind of giving you a real look into what my office looks like right now, because you guys see this, which I've set up in a certain way to make it look nice. But what you don't see right here, the real life of Sarah right now, is there's just explosion. It's a mess right here. I will show you in my stories. Come check me out on Instagram, Sarah Cannon. And I was wondering if you guys would be interested in an office tour as well as an office clean with me. So this happens every single time I am doing a new book. Is whenever I'm in the crunch mode of like, all I can think about is the book is my life, I don't have time to keep my surroundings completely clean. Now, George is a much more like neat freak. Like he hates clutter in the house. So we try to keep the main parts of the house decluttered and, as clean as we can. But this is my office space and I can make it as cluttered as I want it. So things just fall apart. Laundry doesn't get as put away as it needs to be. Everything just kind of loses priority because my book is all about that. So I have a mess over here of epic proportions. So I thought it might be kind of fun to do, here's what my actual office space and writing space looks like after a book is finished. So here I'm going to clean it up because this is part of my process. So let's get into that real quick. So part of my story and book process, obviously you guys know that sometimes what happens first is that we end up with a idea that comes through a dream or through watching another TV series or, something that inspires me. So my ideas come from lots of different places. Sometimes I'll be reading a book and it'll spark a new idea. Sometimes I'll have a dream and it'll spark a new idea, or a meditation, or, just something. But ideas are kind of coming all the time. And so ideas will come, I'll kind of file them away. Sometimes I make a Google Doc that has that idea. Sometimes I start a notebook and it'll just be a little, write down of what that scene was. So for The Witch's Key, this idea for me, this dream, was the Demon's Circle with Lenny. And I won't go deeper into that because some of you may not have finished it yet. But the Demon's Circle was a dream moment for me. And when I woke up, I was like, ooh, I have to write that down. And like I mentioned before, this was like 4 or 5 years ago that I had that dream. I outlined the story. I started writing it, but I never finished it. So this was my chance to finish it. And this is what that story turned into, was 79,000 words of a rough draft. When I decide that I'm going to actually start working on an idea and developing an idea, actually writing it, that's where the stationery comes in. So, yes, Laura, you order Once Upon a Kiss next week. So starting on May 4th. So I will definitely remind you guys. If you order Once Upon a Key before Monday, it won't count. So it has to be Monday or after. So May 4th or after. And if you buy it before that, it won't count for next week's sales. So what I do when I commit is, first things first, I decide on how many points of view are going to be in the story. Because as writers, we actually have a ton of decisions to make about, did I say Once Upon a Kiss? Oh, sorry, Once Upon a Kiss. So we have a ton of ideas to decide, like a ton of decisions to make when we first have an idea. Do we want to have multiple POV? Do we want to have a single POV? Then you have to decide more about points of view. We also have to decide, is it going to be like The Witch's Key, first person past tense, where this is also like Beautiful Demon series, where it's like, it's as if the narrator who is telling the story in I, so first person, is telling it in the past tense after it's already occurred. I ran the sapphire pendant along the silver chain around my neck and looked out. So it's all in past tense. But my Shadow Demon saga is all in first person past. But once you get to book 7, it starts going into 4 different points of view. We have Jackson, Harper, Leah, and Airden. But the first 6 books are all just in Harper's POV. So lots of decisions about that. My Fair Hope series, which is a contemporary romance series, is all told in first person present tense. So instead of saying like, I ran my hand across the key, you would say, I run my hand across the key, as if it's happening right now. And it has a very, very different feel from past tense. Then you move on to my Death's Awakening series, and that series is told with more than 8 points of view, and it's in third person past tense. So this is Instead of saying I, you would say she. So Parrish, if Parrish is the main character in the first part, it would be like she appeared in the doorway. So we're kind of looking at her. So there are lots and lots of choices that you make. And Renee said, how do you decide first or third person? And for me, I almost always prefer writing in first person. And I almost always decide writing in the past tense. The reason that I wrote The Trouble with Goodbye and all of the Fairhope series in present tense is because a lot of new adult romance that was coming out at the time was written in this tense, and it had a certain feel to it, like an emotional, it's very immediate and emotional because it's happening right now in the present tense. And so I decided that was right for my story because those stories are very emotional. So that is, first person, present tense. The Shadow Demon Saga follows what I would say the majority of young adult paranormal type stories are, which is first person past tense. So the first thing I look at when I'm trying to decide, am I going to go first person or third person? Am I going to go past tense or am I going to go present tense? As I look at what do most people do in this genre. So you have to identify what's the genre that you're currently writing, and then what do most people do in that genre. So traditional romance novels, for example, adult romance novels are told in third person past, but you do have a certain amount of romance novels that are told in first person past. And then you have things that are written in first person present, like new adult romance. So it's important to know what type of story you're writing and then usually go with that type of thing. So Spaska says, do you have a story in third person? Yes. So my entire Eternal Sorrows series is in third person past tense. And that's my only series that is written in third person. So that's one of the first things I do is I look at what genre I'm writing, and then I decide what's within the realm of possibility, because the reason I look at what other people are doing is because if readers are like everybody in, if everybody in YA paranormal writes in first person past, and you are the first person to come out and write in a different type of thing, like you write it in third person or you write it in first person present, and most people are not writing in that, then a lot of readers are potentially going to be jarred by it because they'll be like, oh, this is a book just like these others that I've read. And then they pick it up and they're like, this reads weird, but they can't really tell why it reads weird. So it's just important to know what other authors are doing, not because of the authors, but because of the readers. So you guys can let me know in the comments if you find that you enjoy a specific type of point of view best, and if it's jarring to you, if something is in a different type of point of view. There are people who don't like the fact that, like, as a writer, I was told years ago that if you're going to write multiple POV, you have to write in third person past tense, because you can't write first person with multiple POVs. First person is only for one person's story. However, when you get to book 7 of the Shadow Demon Saga, I write it in my own way. I write it first person, 4 points of view. And there are some people, even in our coven, who have said they don't necessarily like that. They find it hard to follow. So, you can't please everybody. You can't always do it the way everybody else does it. But for me, I feel like when I started looking at it, this was the way that I needed to write it. And sometimes you have to go by instinct. So that's one of the first decisions that I make, is what type of POV and how many POVs. So then you go into the stationery. Christabel says, I love the 4 POVs. And I actually love doing the 4 POVs too, because I feel like the reason that I went and moved from first person with just Harper to first person with all 4 characters is that by the time I got to book 6, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but the story gets much bigger, and there's a huge battle in book 6 of the Shadow Demon Saga. And I found that it was difficult to tell the story of that battle and everything that was happening just from Harper's POV, because the rules of writing that type of fiction is it has to only be things that Harper knows. So unless she can see the entire battlefield, she doesn't actually know what's going on with Airden and Jackson and everybody else. So, well, Airden's not in that fight. I don't want to give any spoilers, but she doesn't know what's happening to Jackson. She doesn't know what's happening to Andros or any of these other characters. So it gets to be difficult to tell that story. And I found that it was limiting me. So when I moved on to tell more of the story, it had to have more points of view. And if you've read on 7, 8, 9, 10, you would know there's no way I could tell this story without having all of those points of view, because there's too much that's happening in everybody's life. You know, you wouldn't know anything about what's happening in the Northern Kingdom if Harper was stuck with the Emerald Priestess, and so on and so forth. So it's like I had to tell it that way. To reduce confusion, I titled each of the chapters, I put a character heading there to try to make it less confusing. But I do know that some people find that confusing, but it's just the way it had to be. So one of the second things that I have to do is I choose colors for each of my characters. Now, if I am just telling a single POV, I will just choose one color that represents that character. So like Lenny, for example, is the only POV character in The Witch's Key. So typically when I'm just writing one character, she gets purple. And that's what I do, because purple is one of my favorite colors and I just love to do it. Now, it can be difficult to find the right color purple of index cards, but you can find some that are this color. What I do when I can't find enough index cards to represent all of my characters. So remember, I'm also working on the Eternal Sorrows series, which has more than 8 POVs. So you can't find 8 different colors of index cards, and I need index cards when I am writing these stories. So what I did was I got cardstock, which is a little bit thicker than regular paper, and I cut my own, which tells you just how crazy I am. Yes, I did that. So this is my stack of plotting notes for Fate's Surrender. And this is a lot of notes and a lot of stuff on here. So for example, Parrish is purple. So everything that's happening in her point of view goes on the purple cards. And I'm writing in white paint because, or it's kind of like a paint pen, because you can't see it if I write on this dark purple with black. So you can kind of see I wrote on it in pencil back here, but the white seems to go really nicely and you can read it pretty well. Crash is either orange or yellow, depending on what color sticker I have, because I like to have not only index cards, but also pens, brush pens I often will use, and then also stickers. So the witch in my Shadow Demon or Eternal Sorrows, she's red. Then Noah is blue. And you can see I've got these kind of in order. The dark one is kind of a newish POV in this third book that you see more of her POV. She's in black. So of course I have to write on those in like metallic colors. Pink is Carmen. And then I have 2 different colors of green. So Zoe is Parrish's sister and she's in light green. And then in the back here, I have the little boy whose name you'll find out finally in the third book is the dark green. So you can see I've got all of these different colors of note cards, and I made these myself. It was a labor of love because I specifically wanted those colors. Then I also have, this is a key. So you can kind of see I just took a white postcard or index card and created a key using the different colors of pens that I had, as well as brush pens and the different stickers that I have. So these little circle stickers I got from Amazon, and they're from something called Teacher Created Resources. And they're just stickers like this, just little round stickers. So when I'm making a note and I've got all of these different POVs on the page, I can actually put like a purple dot because it's Parrish's scene. And then if it switches to Noah's point of view, I can put a blue dot there. So that helps me visually see what's going on in the scene. So for me, when you only have one point of view, it's super, super easy to do because you just write everything in purple, or you could write it all in black. It doesn't really matter. It's all one character. However, when you start to write books, which the majority of my books now that I'm writing are multiple POV, I find it so helpful to have all the different colors of, of a character POV worked out like this. Because when I'm looking at my plotting sheets, I can see who's telling what part of the story, who's where. Jackson's way over here, Airden's way over here, Leah's here. Now, for my Shadow Demon Saga, I have all of my all of my main stuff right now is packed up for Fate's Surrender because that's the book I'm working on. But just to let you guys know, my colors for the Shadow Demon Saga, Harper is always purple. Jackson is blue. Leah is green and Airden is red. So that's how I have it. And I thought later, I was like, oh, I should have had Airden be blue and Jackson be green. But that's just how I set it up in the beginning. And I didn't really put any thought into it. It was just the colors that I had. So I always tend to use, just to show you some of my little things here. So this is a big Happy Planner deluxe cover. It's not leather. It just looks kind of leathery, but it's fake leather. And yes, I color. And I don't know why I didn't do it that way, but oh well. I realized later, I was like, oh man, I kind of should have done those differently. So this says Big Plans. I just put this little decal on it. This comes just plain black and I put this on it. And I pretty much have, let's see if I can hold it up here. Like all my little tools are in the front here. So I've got my stickers, all of my little page flags, and I usually have some like washi tape in here. Then I have the actual plotting notebook in here. And I just made this cover myself, obviously from my book cover. And inside this notebook, I have all of my books that I'm currently working on and all of my notes for those books. So I have the first one, obviously, is The Witch's Key. So I've got this here and I have all of my plotting notes for The Witch's Key are all right here. So I plot out the story. I write everything down. I've got some structure notes here. And then I also will sometimes like have to work through notes where I need Post-it notes. And so this is like a sample of a brainstorming sheet where I just put the book cover so I could kind of get inspired. And I was brainstorming things that would happen in the story and just more brainstorming. You can kind of see what my notes look like, blank pages. Then I also have this writing tracker where I like to keep track of how many words I've written per session and what day. So all of my writing sprints are in here in this writing tracker. So you can see like all the days that I worked and how many words I wrote per day. And what I found is that if I didn't use, before I was using a system like this, when I had everything organized in this way, what would happen is I would have a Post-it note, an index card, a bunch of little random pages like this where I would write different little things down on. And it would drive me crazy because I'd get a month into working on the book and I'd think, okay, I had that really good idea about the midpoint. Where is that sheet? And then I couldn't find it anywhere. Because remember how I just was telling you that the room starts to get messier the deeper I get into a book? That's what starts to happen to me. I start to completely lose track of all my little notes. So what I decided to do was create this plotting notebook. The reason that I chose basically Happy Planner, you can tell Happy Planner has these discs and you just need a hole punch, is because I can add my own pages to these discs. So you could also use those 3-ring binders that we all use in school. You could use something like that if you wanted to, just something that you can keep adding pages to so that you don't lose them. So that has been a game changer for me. So I have basically two things. Yes, all problems are solved by having more notebooks. And if I keep all of my notes in here, then I know where they are. And then the second piece of the puzzle is, of course, the index cards. So I tend to, when I start working on a book, I will take them. I don't know where I put it though. See, this is where I start to lose stuff. I will take all of my index cards and I'll put them together with a rubber band at the end of every day. And then they go into this little Erin Condren pouch. And the reason I use this one is because it's big enough to hold all my pens and my index cards. So the other things that I have in this Erin Condren pouch, and you guys are going to, you think I'm so crazy, is I have all the pens that I need to do the plotting. So I tend to use these. These are Tombow dual brush pens. And as you could see from this little key that I did, they have two sides to them. They have a brush tip that's like a bigger brush. And then they also have like a fine tip kind of marker tip to it. So that's what you see here as the thicker line and the thinner line. Then I also have another little pen that matches. So I use these SEPA pens. These I got on Amazon. The Tombow dual brush pens are actually a little bit expensive. So if you don't want to spend the money on this, you can use these, which are Crayola super tip markers. These you can get like 50 for like $10 or something. And you can also make long, like thick lines and thin lines with those. But I have a bunch of these. So if I can find the right color when I'm color coding, I use these for headers. So like sometimes when I'm creating a new sheet in my plotting notebook for Carmen, for example, who is pink, I will just put a pink line all the way across so that when I'm flipping through, I can see that it's Carmen's POV. And so I'll flip through and I'll be like, okay, there's Carmen's sheet. That's why I use these, because if I was using washi tape, I would probably use it all up. So markers are more efficient. Then I will find a corresponding pen like this that's a much more fine tip pen to write all my notes in. So that's pretty much what I do. I won't show you guys the next header exactly because it has the book cover on it. But just to kind of show you, I've just redone this because I'm going to be replotting as I go through. But this is basically an old Happy Planner sheet that used to be dated, and it's probably all the way back from 2016 or 2017 now. And I just covered it up, and I am going to fill out all of these scenes that go into Act 1, Act 2, and so on onto this sheet. And if you really want to see this in more detail, you can go over to my Heart Breathings channel, and I have a little bit more of a walkthrough. But you can also see, let's see if I can hold this up for y'all. On this side, can you see that? All the different colors. So I also have this washi tape that I have just taken and put it like a tab on the side over here that also matches these colors. So you've got the purple tab is all of Parrish's notes. Then you've got the blue tab is all of Noah's notes, and so on. So I find that when I'm doing multiple POV stories, this helps me so much to have little tabs, little sections for each character, and to have matching pins so that I can always keep them all together, keep all my notes in one place. Plus, it brings me joy. And I find that the more joy I can take from the story writing process, the more I'm going to be excited to get involved in it, to get down, get my hands dirty with it, and to start writing it. So that's part of my process. So just wanted to show you guys that in case you were interested. A couple other stationery things. So this is an Erin Condren planner folio. So it's just a little, I don't know, zippered pouch that has my other stuff in it. So this has a little section in the front where I keep a couple of my like purple mild liners, one of my favorite pens, and some stickers. And then behind this pouch this is my writing planner. So I know it sounds crazy to have a second one, but this is like where I keep basically all of my promotional ideas. So when I started thinking, for example, about what am I going to do for the Witch's Key, I started, let's see if I can find the notes. Or for example, so I have new covers coming out for the Fairhope series. So I've got all my ideas for, there's a little bit of a preview of part of the new cover. So I have all of my stuff here for what I'm going to do for that launch or how I'm going to promote the Witch's Key when it's done. And this planner is an Erin Condren planner, but it's their deluxe monthly planner. So it just has monthly like overviews, just a monthly page, just like this. And then the rest of it is a notebook. So this is what I use to keep track of all my promotions and like any ads that I'm running or anything like that. And then the final sort of notebook, sorry, I keep going away from the microphone. The final notebook that I have is this one, which is my manifesting notebook. And I just started this one this year. This is another Erin Condren, but it's just a notebook because I want to work toward, and I told you guys about this, manifesting a television deal. So I created like a vision board for creating, manifesting a TV deal. So I've got like Veronica Mars, which is where my Shadow Demon saga came from, the CW or Hulu or Prime or HBO. I'll take any of the above, ABC Family, any of those. And I just have like some of the shows that I think people that like those shows like Buffy or Vampire Diaries or Pretty Little Liars would also like from Beautiful Demons. Then I have like various things that I've done to help try to manifest that. And it's a work in progress. It's just I'm constantly adding to it and adding ideas for it. So that is basically the different parts of my process, I guess. But I will go through, plot out my story using all of those different tools, and then I'll start writing. The writing will happen in multiple different places. I don't always write in one place. So sometimes it's in this office, standing up. I bought a standing desk so that I could put Evie in a carrier and still be typing even if she's fussy. I also have my gaming space that you guys saw in one of my vlogs. I will sometimes write up there. And actually the majority of the Witch's Key got written up there in the evenings. And then I also have a Chromebook that has really been where I've written the majority of my books over the last probably 4 years have been on this Samsung Chromebook that I have in the other room.
I'll take it from me.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was funny. I found this by the front door. That's how much washi tape we have all over the house.
George is laughing because he just found a random roll of washi tape on the floor. You gonna get that, little Alice in Wonderland? Uh-oh, you dropped it. You dropped it. Say hi, Evie. Say she got her little legs exposed today. She was wearing shorts earlier. You guys, this little baby is going to turn 8 months old this week, and she just moved into 6 to 9 month clothes. What you going to grab? Look up there. There's Evie. You say hi? Say hi. Yeah. So yeah, random washi tape. So so that is the process. So I write the rough draft, which is crazy and often the longest part of the process for me. Usually the longest part of the process is either the plotting or the writing of the rough draft. So you guys just saw my process basically of the rough draft. And there are errors for sure in the story. If you guys were to go back now, you may not have noticed them as I was reading it, but if you were to go back now to my blog and start reading through, you'd start to notice some of the places that things like, oh, I said this in one place and now there's something in another place, because that's the way rough drafts are. You can't go back, especially when you're reading it live, you can't really go back and fix things that you already wrote. So I don't know what she's trying to get at. What you doing? What are you looking at? Look at this. Look at this. you can't go back and, I can't go back and fix things from the first or second episode. Also, the midpoint of this book ended up being around episode 10, but then there ended up being 22 episodes that were longer. So there's probably, I'm guessing there are going to be, I'm guessing there are going to be additions to the first part of the book, just some things that maybe strengthen Lenny's relationship with Peyton in the beginning, or maybe another encounter with Kai earlier on, or maybe more scenes with Uncle Martin. I might be adding a training scene of them out at the training grounds for the beginning of the book. So I imagine I'll probably be adding 5,000 to 10,000 words to the final draft. And of course, I'll be fixing things, throughout. So, yeah, there are definitely things that as I got towards the end, I was like, oh, I wish I could go back and change that. But that's one of the great things about writing, is that you can go back and change it, because you guys got to see the rough draft, but normally I would finish the book like I did and no one will have read it yet. And then I would go back and already start editing it and fixing it and doing that. But you guys got to see kind of the rough draft. So I would say this was probably cleaner than my rough draft. Yeah. Thank you, Melissa, for saying that. Ooh, where is Andrew? Andrew, if you're watching, you can come say hi. He might be upstairs. So yeah, this was probably cleaner than the normal rough draft for me, because I knew I was going to be reading it, but there are still mistakes that you will see. And I figured some people were asking me, am I going to pull down the rough draft from my blog or from Wattpad or whatever when I publish the new draft? And I don't think that I am. I'm just going to leave it up for people to see the roughed version, because I feel like it's kind of a fun experience to see the rough draft versus where it ends up at the end. And I don't even know what might still change in the final version because I haven't written it yet. So usually when I finish the rough draft, I need a few days of just distance from it. So that's what I've done. Obviously, I just read on Monday the very final part of the epilogue. Yesterday, I thought I was going to get a lot of work done. I did almost nothing. I completely took the day off. We watched a movie. We watched Alita Battle Angel on Netflix, I think it is, which was a pretty good movie too. I feel like it had potential to be even more, but I really liked it. Yeah, it was a veggie day for me. It was just, I needed a break. Sometimes I will take a month off between if I need it. So we'll, it just depends. Okay, it was on HBO. So it just kind of depends. But I'm in a unique situation right now because I also am writing and working on Fate's Surrender. So I think that what I'm going to do, because this book is already up for pre-order for May 19th, I am going to take a break for the rest of this week and keep working on Fate's Surrender and cleaning my office, getting my space done. So usually when I finish a rough draft is when I finally get a chance to clean everything up. So I'll do a vlog for you guys, since there seemed to be some interest, to show you what my office looks like when I'm done writing a book, and go through that. And then we'll clean up. I'll show you my office. And then, after that's done, I will start back to work on the edits of this, but I'm also simultaneously still finishing the rough draft of Fate's Surrender. So usually I don't work on 2 stories at once, but it's a little bit of a different time right now. And then once the second draft for me, or the editing draft, is over, I usually read through it a few times. Then I send it to my beta readers with a list of questions. Hey, usually one of those questions is this boring? Or is this interesting? Because I can never tell. I'm like, is this book boring? I don't know. I'm afraid it's too slow, or I'm afraid it's too this or whatever. Did you see that twist coming? Was it too obvious? Were there any awkward sentences? And the beta readers, the 3 main beta readers that I have, are people that I've been working with very closely as beta readers for, 7 years now, 6 or 7 years now, and they're amazing, and I love them with all of my heart. They do an amazing job, and they send me a lot of good feedback on the story. So when they are done with the story, also George is my first reader, except this time you guys were my first reader, and then I will replot the book. So when I'm done and the new, like all the new stuff is done, I will go through that same plotting sheet that I showed you guys, and I will refill that out to make sure that I hit all of those little plot points and there's nothing I can tighten up. There's no scene that doesn't need to be there and all of that. So then I'll go through so much more work on that final draft. Another thing that I do, and I do see a few questions, so I'll answer those in a second. Another thing that I do at that point is I go to naturalreader.com and I put my manuscript into it and it reads it to me. So I will have it printed out, or I'll have it like on an iPad or on my screen, and I'll listen to my book, because I find that listening to it, I catch a lot of errors like typos and stuff like that. As an indie author, I find that it's really difficult, since I'm kind of a one-woman show and I'm hiring out editors, even with beta readers and my husband and my professional editor and a proofreader. There's still always one or two typos. So that always sucks. But I do try to, like, if someone emails me and says, oh, I found this typo, I will go in and change it. So that, that needs to get done kind of as a work in progress. But I do a lot of work to try to make sure there's not a lot of typos in it, even though I don't have a professional editor. So hopefully you guys don't find a lot of typos in my books, but please be forgiving if you do find a few, and don't feel bad about emailing me and saying, hey, I found a typo real quick. And just as long as you do it nicely, I don't mind. And I really appreciate it, actually. Then once that's done, I format the books myself. So I format them, I write the blurbs myself, and then I publish it myself. So I do all of that work. So basically it's me from start to finish. And then I get help from betas and from professional editors. Let's see. I know, oops, let me find this. I saw a few questions come by, so I want to kind of Teutonics, we want to see all those dirty secrets, floors and all. That's funny. Gemma says, when you finish writing a book, do you keep all of your notes on those cards? Like, do you still own those ones from the early Demons books? That's a good question. But I don't, sadly. My process has changed so much from the beginning. Because like I said, back then it used to be just like scribbles on pieces of paper. I do still have some of my notes from Beautiful Demons, but they're kind of scattered and they're in a 3-ring binder. But I didn't even make note cards for that book because I wasn't yet. I don't think I started with the note cards until probably book 5, Rival Demons. And I don't think I still have any of those note cards. A lot of times I'll just throw them out, because what ends up in the book is usually very different from what went into the note card, because the story is constantly evolving. But it might be interesting to hold on to some of those things for future reference later. Carol asked, do you feel like you have extra beta response since you read it and got feedback immediately? Yeah, I do feel like that, because I feel like just from reading it and from emails you guys have sent me, from comments that I've seen, it lets me know kind of what parts you guys enjoyed of the story that maybe I could amplify a little bit. I think that it's been helpful to get this kind of feedback. It's like you guys were all my beta readers for this in a lot of ways. And I think that was a fun way to do the writing. It was really interesting. So yeah, I think I did get extra beta from this. Kara said, where do you find your beta readers? So I have found my beta readers from loyal readers, just like you guys. So these are people that have, have been around for a long time. A couple of my beta readers I met at book signings, and we got to be friends. Like, I met them at a book signing, we were talking, and then they were like, hey, do you want to come to dinner? So I went to dinner with them, and we started talking so much. And so it's a husband and wife team. And now they both read my books and they both give feedback separately. And then my other beta reader has just also come from my group of readers that I started to notice. One reader in particular would always leave really thoughtful reviews that were very, good, but she would leave them on Goodreads and she would leave them at several different places. So I reached out to say thank you and to find out if she wanted to be on my ARC team, because I do also have an advanced review team that gets the books a little bit earlier. And she started out in that ARC team and then was giving me some feedback on some books. And so I just reached out to her and said, hey, would you beta read this? And that's kind of where that relationship turned into. So it's definitely not something that's just as cavalier as like, hey, will you read this? It was like relationships that formed first. Seesaw 4 asked, how has your writing process changed? So yeah, it has changed definitely in like all the things, all the organization that you see here has definitely was not in the beginning. I've been publishing, actually, this is my 10th year of publishing, but I've been writing for 14 years. So it has evolved and changed so much from just like, even with Beautiful Demons, like I have a plotting process now that I try to hit structurally. And I couldn't even use that book as an example because I didn't follow it back then. This has all been stuff that I've learned over the course of several years. What's George's role in your writing? Yes, he is my muse. He's also ideas to avoid generator. He's my bad idea sounding board, where I'll say, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And he'll just start throwing, I think it's naturalreaders.com. Samuel, try that. Natural Readers with an S. So I will run ideas by him and then he'll say, what if they blow it up? And I'll be like, no, they're not going to blow it up. That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life. But that will push me to a new idea. So he's definitely my sounding board. We talk about plot all the time. That's one of the most fun things about going to, definitely long, like beach trips or any type of drive. No, you're okay, Samuel. It's like, it's called Natural Reader, but the website is naturalreaders.com. I just didn't mention that, but he gives me really good ideas when we go on big writing or road trips. We talk about plot. When we go out walking and stuff, we talk through plot, and I absolutely love that. And it's just, I love that he's so invested in my writing process. I'm sure that he would like to talk about things other than my writing sometimes. So we do other things together besides that. But yeah, it's definitely one of the things I'm most grateful for is that my husband is part of my process. He just is like, keeps wanting me to write books that are like bigger fantasy series, something even bigger. Maybe less young adult. So we'll have to see if any of that pans out. I just keep writing what I want. Has George ever come up with any of the final twists or main events in any of your stories? Yes, he wants me to write epic fantasy. George, have you ever come up with any of my twists? I don't think so. Usually my twists surprised me. So the funny thing about George is that he hears me working through the ideas. So years later, he'll be like, well, what about when such and such happened in book 6? And I'm like, that didn't happen in book 6. And he's like, we talked about it. We had the whole thing worked out. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what happened when I wrote it. So he gets very confused about what we talked about versus what actually made it into the book. So before we start working on Vengeful Darkness, which is book 11 of my Shadow Demon saga, he is going to read the entire thing. We both are going to read the entire thing all together. And that's going to be separate from the like book club type thing that we're going to be doing together. It's going to be definitely a big part of the process of writing those last 2 books because there's so much that goes into it. Sarah keeps messing with your epic ideas. Nilda, you are so true. It's so true. Teutonics, my husband comes up with the titles to stories never written. And then he's like, why haven't you written that yet? Gemma says, my partner is like that with my dances. He always suggests jazz hands. And I was like, no. Well, sometimes it's really good to have someone to bounce those ideas off, even if they're bad ideas. Even if you know it's not the right idea, it just gets you going. I saw that someone asked, do you ever still get stuck? And this, I still get stuck too often. This book, The Witch's Key, is the first book that I've finished in over a year and a half, because in October of 2018, I put out book 10, which is called Deceiving Darkness of my Shadow Demon saga. But the week before, I was supposed to put that book out, which means all that publishing stuff, the book was finished, but there's all the publishing things that have to happen. You have to write the blurb, you have to get the book formatted, you have to do the final read throughs, check it on all your devices. There's all these things that have to happen. I sadly, after 2 years of trying to get pregnant, miscarried. And I was super, super like crazy excited that I was pregnant after all this time, 2 years. We were so excited and so happy, and we were living on cloud nine. And so it was like 2 weeks before that book, or really a week before the book was supposed to be out, I miscarried. And I tried to push myself to get that book out on time, but I just couldn't do it. I needed to take a break because I was devastated. And George and I talked about it, because I was like, maybe I need to push it back for a couple more weeks. And we finally decided, okay, I'm just going to get it out, and then I'll take a break after that. So that is kind of, I did so well that year because I published 5 books in 2018. I published book 9, which was Beyond the Darkness. I published Witch's Mark, which was in the Willow Harbor series. I published 2 Sacrifice Me books. And what else came out that year? Oh, no, and Deceiving Darkness. So I had the last 2 books of Sacrifice Me. So it was 5 books. That was my best year of all time. And I was on such a roll. But that miscarriage really, really threw me in terms of emotions. And so I tried to get right back in as soon as I published book 10 and finish Fate's Surrender, which is I'm still working on it a year and a half later. I tried to get back in and I couldn't. Then I got pregnant with Evie, and I was so scared that I was going to miscarry again that I was like, I did almost nothing. I was like, lay down, walk on the beach, totally like trying to be no stress, as chill as I could. So for months, I wasn't able to write for that. So it was just like, oh my gosh. Then my Heart Breathings channel started taking off, and it was like, we had to move, and then we had a baby coming. And it was like, oh my goodness, I could not get my writing done. So the gift that you guys have given me through this process of all of this right now is I'm writing again. And whether it's the book you were waiting for or not, because it was completely out of the blue, sometimes when you're stuck, you have to just get the motor running again. So it was just one of those things that was like, I had a stuck motor for the last year or so, and I've been trying to work on getting that book done. I've actually written 65,000 words plus on Fate's Surrender, but it was just difficult. Yeah. And Carol, I taped all of Publish and Thrive, which is a self-publishing course that is over 100 videos. And just there's a ton of stuff. So I was working really hard. I just had a little bit of a difficult time writing, or a lot of a difficult time writing. So now I'm feeling the momentum again. I'm feeling, yes, TWK was my grease. And, I've done this before. I got stuck once before, and I wrote Deep Dark Secrets. And so I needed kind of a break, after that or that kind of got the grease the wheels again. And I started writing again. And now I haven't gotten to book 2. So my hope is that I'm going to be able to finish out these other series while simultaneously working on The Witch's Key season 2. So we're just going to keep going. I'm going to stay, oh no, you haven't made dinner. I wasn't expecting to talk so long, but you guys are here, and I'm so excited that you're here. So Vanessa, the Deep Dark Secrets book is a book that I actually went on and wrote a blog post, because again, it had been a year between books. At the time, I was going through a really, really difficult depression. So I think that's one of the things that people don't understand about authors sometimes, is they just think that we're just writing books all the time. And, you don't think of it as like, oh, this is a fellow person who also has hard things going on in their life. They're just a writer, and you see them as the stories that they write. Oh, it's Harper, and this is what, it's not a rude thing. It's just, that's what we do. You don't really always look at people like Stephen King and think that he's got, problems going on in his life and he's stressed about things. You just see him as Stephen King and he's these stories, but we're people, and we go through depression and we go through hard times and miscarriages, and we're trying to lose weight, or we're trying to eat right, or we're trying to deal with emotional traumas and all kinds of stuff. So it's hard because you don't want to always like air your dirty laundry to people and be like, I'm struggling, but sometimes that's the only way. And I'm kind of an open book. Obviously, you guys know I don't mind sharing my life. But I was going through a really difficult time back then as well when I wrote Deep Dark Secrets. And I was supposed to be working on, I think at the time it was book 8 of the Shadow Demon Saga, but I'd have to go back and see what book I was on. It could be book 9 I was supposed to be working on. I can't remember now, but I was supposed to be working on a Shadow Demon Saga book or Sacrifice Me or something. And I just couldn't get the words out. It just wasn't coming. And so I came to my fans, and some of you were here around at that time. And I wrote this big blog post about how I just needed permission to write something different. And I had, again, this idea. So Deep Dark Secrets is a little bit of a darker book than my other books. It's still young adult, but it's part of what I'm calling the Spirit Walkers trilogy. And I believe it will be 3 books. And it's a really interesting story that I have based on little snippets of Native American lore and legend. And it was a really like inspired book for me, that I saw this scene happening. If you read it, it's the very first scene in the book, where you've got 2 girls. Well, you don't really see it until later. So you just see a snippet of it. But it's this idea of, what if you have, like, you wake up from a traumatic event and you can't really remember what happened, but everybody else is trying to tell you what happened, but it doesn't feel right to you, that you're like, is that what happened? So basically, people tell her, Mariah is the name of my main character, that she wakes up basically, and she's been in this like rehab facility, and she's getting out, that she was in a car accident one night after a party with her very, very best and dearest friend. And everyone claims that they were doing drugs and they were doing all these, bad things. And, they don't know if they were trying to commit suicide or what, but they basically drove off the side of a bridge, and her friend died and she barely survived. So the whole book is about what really happened that night, because Mariah does not believe that they were ever doing drugs. That just isn't who they were. But everybody, including all the adults around her, believe that that's who she is. So she's lost her parents' trust. She's lost her teacher's trust. So it's that kind of thing. And again, we have a lot of things that you find in my other books. So you've got a necklace, like a pendant, and that comes into play. You also have mysterious boy that like showed up at school, very similar to the Kai situation in The Witch's Key. These are themes that I like to explore often, but I have pulled this story out of Native American lore and legend because it's something that I've always been really, really interested in. I know I don't look like it, but if you saw pictures of a lot of my family, my brother and my mom, they have darker skin. And we were always told growing up that darker skin was because of, on my mom's half of the family, Miami Indians, that were living and working on my great grandparents' farm. And so we always wondered if we were part Native American. And I think as a child that always grew in my imagination of that Native American lore and legend. And we do have a big photo of that farm, like from the early, like turn of the century, that was the whole family of people that were working on that farm. And there's a whole section of people over here on the edge that are Native American that were working on the farm. So it's like, we don't know if that Miami Indian connection is actually there. We should take one of those DNA tests and find out. But it's just something, regardless of whether it's actually there in my past, it's something that ignited my imagination. And I was like, okay, this would be really fun to tell. So it's probably one of the books I did more research for. And please don't go read that book thinking that this is actually what happens in Native American culture, because it's not an accurate representation. It's a fantasy representation of some things that were pulled from truth. So it's creative license as well. But that is an interesting book. And I'm hoping that I can finish that series coming up next year. So that will be on the docket for next year. But that's a little bit darker. Definitely the ending of that book is darker. All right, you guys. So we are a whole hour in. I'm going to give away this book and then we're going to end it today. I had other things I was going to talk about story structure wise, but we don't have time. I just spilled part of this drink too. So let's give away a copy of Beautiful Demons. So I've got this paperback copy. I've also have the 3 that I gave away last week. So we've got Crystal and Laura and Edith. Yours are coming. I'm just going to send them all out after Friday. So I'm just going to, let's see if we can hopefully give it away to somebody that does not have Close My Eyes. And Nilda, this is for you. So just send me an email, sarah@sarahcannon.com, and let me know your mailing address, and I will send this out to you probably Friday or Saturday. I do have, oh, she's got her little shorts on. You're so cute. I do have also, yes, they will be signed. I will be signing this for you. I have one more that I'm going to give away on Friday. So show up for us then. Also, I am going to do a couple other giveaways for people that have used the hashtags MOONDUST Cupcakes, Sir Bean. Thank you guys for ordering Sir Bean merchandise. I cannot wait for those things to come in. And the other hashtag is TWK Finale. So people that have used, Bella's Challenge, people that have used those either in the Coven or on Instagram or anywhere like that, I'm going to choose a couple winners for some other special things on Friday. So I'm so excited that we had so many people here today, even though we were just kind of chit-chatting about things. If you have any other questions that you want us to go through on Friday, let me know. But I'm going to be sharing my screen with you guys on Friday and giving you some ideas of what I think these characters look like. So if you have any of your own suggestions, come into the Coven or send me an email and say, oh, I think this person definitely would play Peyton or this person would play Kai. And we'll just kind of play around with, who these characters are. So all right. Oh, birthday Friday. Yay, Sandy. I saw that it was Carol's birthday too coming up, or else today. I'm not sure. Evie is a pantser. That's so cute. You guys are awesome. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this look into my process. Please click the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Again, there are lots more videos about my process and pens and all the different things that I use over on Heart Breathings if you're a writer and you'd like to join over there. But I thought just as readers, you guys might also be interested in that. So hopefully I will also have a vlog coming up for you this weekend that is going to be a look inside how my office really looks, dirty secrets and all, right? And cleaning it up. So hopefully that'll be fun for you guys. I sincerely enjoyed this, and I will see you guys on Friday. So we're going to keep it going. Next week is my list run for the USA Today bestseller list. We'll see how it goes. And I will be reading my story Red from Once Upon a Kiss, not Once Upon a Key. And that's it, you guys. Say bye-bye, Evie. Look at these little baby feet. Her little feet are ticklish. All right. I love you guys. Sorry you didn't get to see Andrew, but I'll make sure that he's here. And Sandy, if we don't see you, have a happy birthday. All right. Love you guys. See you Friday. Bye. Oh.